This is the day that the Lord had made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Before we get into the actual presentation, I want us to do a little icebreaker. I want to send you back into those chat rooms, and I want you to discuss two things. Number one, what is your favorite Bible text, and why is it your favorite? 5 minutes. What is your favorite Bible text, and why is it your favorite? So we have 5 basic objectives for today. Discover skills suitable for teaching, explore the different learning and teaching styles, explore differentiated learning, teach the Pathfinder curriculum creatively, and plan a lesson for a particular achievement class or an honor.
I have spent my entire life either at the schoolhouse, on the way to the schoolhouse, or talking about what happens in the schoolhouse. Both my parents were educators. My maternal grandparents were educators. And for the past 40 years, I've done the same thing. And so needless to say, over those years, I've had a chance to look at education reform from a lot of perspectives. Some of those reforms have been good, some of them have been not so good. And we know why kids drop out. We know why kids don't learn. It's either poverty, low attendance, negative peer influences. We know why. But one of the things that we never discuss, or we rarely discuss, is the value and importance of human connection. Relationships. James Comer says that no significant learning can occur without a significant relationship. George Washington Carver says all learning is understanding relationships. Everyone in this room has been affected by a teacher or an adult. For years, I have watched people teach. I have looked at the best and I've looked at some of the worst. A colleague said to me one time, they don't pay me to like the kids. They pay me to teach a lesson. The kids should learn it. I should teach it. They should learn it. Case closed. Well, I said to her, you know, kids don't learn from people they don't like. She said, that's just a bunch of hooey. And I said to her, well, your year is going to be long and arduous, dear. Needless to say, it was. Some people think that you can either have it in you to build a relationship or you don't. I think Stephen Covey had the right idea. He said you ought to just throw in a few simple things, like seeking first to understand as opposed to being understood. Simple things like apologizing. You ever thought about that? Tell a kid you're sorry, they're in shock. I taught a lesson once on ratios. I'm not real good with math, but I was working on it. And I got back and looked at that teacher edition. I taught the whole lesson wrong. So I came back to class the next day and I said, look, guys, I need to apologize. I taught the whole lesson wrong. I'm so sorry. They said, that's okay, Miss Pearson. You were so excited. We just let you go. I have had classes that were so low, so academically deficient that I cried. I wondered, how am I going to take this group in 9 months from where they are to where they need to be? And it was difficult. It was awfully hard. How do I raise the self-esteem of a child and his academic achievement at the same time? One year I came up with a bright idea. I told all my students, you were chosen to be in my class. Because I am the best teacher and you are the best students, they put us all together so we could show everybody else how to do it. One of the students said, really? I said, really? We have to show the other classes how to do it. So when we walk down the hall, people will notice us. So you can't make noise, you just have to strut. And I gave him a saying to say, I am somebody. I was somebody when I came. I'll be a better somebody when I leave. I am powerful and I am strong. I deserve the education that I get here. I have things to do, people to impress, and places to go. And they said, yeah. You say it long enough, it starts to be a part of you. And so, I gave a quiz, 20 questions. Student missed 18. I put a +2 on this paper and a big smiley face. He said, Miss Pearson, is this an F? I said, yes. He said, then why'd you put a smiley face? I said, because you on the roll. You got 2 right, you didn't miss them all. I said, and when we review this, won't you do better? He said, yes, ma'am, I can do better. You see, -18 sucks all the life out of you. +2 said, I ain't all bad. For years, I watched my mother take the time at recess to review, go on home visits in the afternoon, buy combs and brushes and peanut butter and crackers to put in her desk drawer for kids that needed to eat, and a washcloth and some soap for the kids who didn't smell so good. See, it's hard to teach kids who stink. And kids can be cruel. And so she kept those things in her desk, and years later, after she retired, I watched some of those same kids come through and say to her, you know, Miss Walker, you made a difference in my life. You made it work for me. You made me feel like I was somebody when I knew at the bottom I wasn't. And I want you to just see what I've become. And when my mama died 2 years ago at 92, there were so many former students at her funeral. It brought tears to my eyes, not because she was gone, but because she left a legacy of relationships that could never disappear. Can we stand to have more relationships? Absolutely. Will you like all your children? Of course not. And you know your toughest kids are never absent. Never. You won't like them all, and the tough ones show up for a reason. It's the connection, it's the relationships. And while you won't like them all, the key is they can never, ever know it. So teachers become great actors and great actresses, and we come to work when we don't feel like it, and we listen to policy that doesn't make sense, and we teach anyway. We teach anyway because that's what we do. Teaching and learning should bring joy. How powerful would our world be if we had kids who were not afraid to take risks, who were not afraid to think, and who had a champion? Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. Is this job tough? You betcha. Oh God, you betcha. But it is not impossible. We can do this. We're educators. We're born to make a difference. Thank you so much.
Okay, I really like that video because it tells us whether we are a classroom teacher or a Pathfinder teacher, our mission is the same. Our mission is to make a difference in the life of the Pathfinders that we encounter every day. So this is where the teaching aspect comes in. Teaching is a purposeful intention with aims to promoting and causing. So promoting and causing learning to happen. Learners are intrinsically different and have preferred learning styles. So I really want you to understand that. So in your opinion, what are some skills needed for teaching? I'm just going to ask you to raise your hands and I'll take a few answers. What are some skills needed for teaching in your opinion?
Patience.
Oh, definitely. That's probably the number one, right? Any more?
Organization.
Very good. I'll take two more.
A desire to teach. It should be something you want to do, not something you feel forced to do.
Right. So a passion.
Humility.
Humility. These are all
Creativity.
great answers. Thank you so much. We're going
Knowledge.
to move on. So some skills that are needed for teaching. This is just, there are so many different skills that can be utilized because for every different child or for every different class, you may need a different set of skills. I want to focus on those two skills that are in red print. It says effective discipline skills and good classroom management skills. I put those first for a reason, because if you are in a Pathfinder class and you can't manage your class and you don't have discipline skills, you really can't teach the class. It's not going to happen. You're going to spend most of your time trying to manage and discipline because you don't have the effective skills or an effective plan to deal with that. So if you don't have that, teaching is not going to take place. And if teaching is not going to take place, learning definitely is not going to take place either. Moving down, good communication with parents. Parents, you know, can be your best friend or your worst enemy. So you want them to be your best friend. You do that by developing good communication skills with them. Have good communication. Need an engaging personality. You can't stand in front of your students and you just flat, like, I don't really want to be here. You need clear objectives for your lesson, which I will go into later, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that right now. You have to have high expectations, as said in the video. The children in front of you are not going to rise to any higher level than you expect of them. If you said to them, you know, you're always doing this wrong, they will always do it wrong. So your words are very important. Knowledge of the curriculum. So just don't go there on a Sunday and open the book and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. You have to have prior knowledge of the curriculum and standards, knowledge of the subject matter. You need a passion for children and teaching. That is extremely important. And you have to have a strong rapport with your students. Again, here is where relationships come into play. So we want to go into a little bit about teaching and learning styles, and I'm going to start with learning styles. So back in 2006, Howard Gardner investigated the cognitive differences within intelligences that make each individual unique. He proposed 8 of those, and I want to go through those with you. We call them the 8 intelligences. The first one we have is word smart or linguistic. This is important as a teacher as you recognize the different intelligences of the children. So a child who is linguistic loves language and they love to express their thoughts and their ideas. Their vocabulary is extensive and they speak well. They're the kind of child who you would ask a simple question that requires a 1-sentence answer and you'll get 10 sentences because they just like to talk and carry on and express themselves. The next one is logic smart or mathematical. These are the ones who are very analytical and like to solve a problem and take forever to get to something because they're always trying to analyze. These people are very, very, very good at math. So a child who in your class who likes to analyze things is logic smart or mathematical. Then we have music smart. I have one of these children in my Pathfinder friend class. They're good at music, they can pick up rhythms, they know patterns, they know tones. This child that I have in my class, he will take his pencil and he will beat it as a drum. When we stop him from doing that, he's going to hum a song or he's going to sing a song. And no matter how he tries to control it, he cannot, because that is really who he is. They can make music out of anything. The next child we have is called body smart or kinesthetic. So a kinesthetic child has to move. Sometimes we'll say these children have ADD, ADHD, because they're just all over the place. They have to move. Sometimes they'll drop a pencil so they can just get up to pick up the pencil or just to move. Sometimes they just have to stand while others are sitting. So as a teacher, you need to recognize those children. Sometimes they need to take a little break and maybe just walk around the hallway or the classroom so that they can refocus and function. Next, we have picture smart or visual intelligence. I know many of you may have encountered children who just always seem like they're daydreaming, always in a faraway land thinking about something. This is actually a type of intelligence. They're always using their minds to envision big things on a very big scale. So these are your picture smart children. Then we have our interpersonal learners, our people smart. These inter means that they're very social. They're able to reach out and to understand and to communicate. These are the type of children you might have to move to sit by themselves to get work done. Because wherever they sit or whoever is sitting next to them, they're going to be making a conversation. So these are your people smart. On the other end of that, we have your intrapersonal, which is self-smart. These are the kind of children who can spend a whole day by themselves and it will not bother them. They don't need to sit next to anybody in class. They're going to do their own thing, read their book, and they just want to be left alone and to be happy. And finally, I'm not sure we see a lot of this, but we have the naturalist or the nature smart. They like to explore nature and to be outside in the outdoors. These kind of children really, really enjoy going camping. That's exactly right up their alley. So when we look at planning for teaching, we're looking at these 8 learning styles. So when you teach, a child should have a variety of these options, not just one, but a variety of these options to help them to learn better. Now, I want to see how well you were listening. And so I'm going to give you a little poll. There are 3 simple questions on here, and you just have to do a true, false on it. So number 1 is definitely true. A child who is word smart is linguistic into words. Number 2, a child who is logic smart is said to have a visual learner style. That is not correct. A child who is logic smart is very analytical. They're very mathematical. Mm-hmm. And number 3, a child who is people smart is said to have a intrapersonal learning style. That is not true. A child who is people smart has an interpersonal learning style. So a child with an intrapersonal learning style is self-smart, okay? So these are some of you need to be familiar with these and know them as to how you're going to deal with each child in your Pathfinder class. Now we're going to go into teaching styles. What is a teaching style? A teaching style, you teach based on your belief system. Some of us even teach how we ourselves were taught when we were younger, okay? We tend to go on personal preference if we really don't know intentionally the different types of teaching styles. So I want to share with you now some different types of teaching styles. I have 5 teaching styles here. It doesn't mean that they're only 5 or only 3 or only 2. I'm just presenting a variety of these styles to you. So the first style that we have is the teacher-centered. And it's exactly as the name indicates. The teacher holds all the knowledge. The teacher holds all the power. It's very traditional. The teacher makes the rules. The teacher sets the expectations. So if you notice the position of the teacher is standing at the front of the classroom, and all of the other children are sitting apart from him. This tells you that the teacher is the only person in authority in that classroom. The second teacher-centered style is called a demonstrator or personal model. You may find this more in a science classroom, for example, where a teacher is demonstrating an experiment. So the teacher is still standing, indicating a position of power and authority, but this time he has students around him. They're in closer proximity. So he's interested in encouraging student participation. He is interested in helping the students develop their skills and apply their skills. The children can ask him ask questions to help them to better understand what they're doing. Okay, so the emphasis here is on demonstrating and modeling. So for example, if you're demonstrating how to tie a knot or to do something in camping skills, you'd have a demonstrator personal model. The next one is student-centered, and this is what we call a facilitator. So the facilitator works on encouraging students to be independent, allows them to make mistakes, help them to correct those mistakes. It's very hands-on and exploratory. I want you to notice the level of the teacher. As opposed to the first 2 slides where the teacher is standing, the teacher is now down to the level of the students. So the emphasis is placed on relationships by joining the students in the learning process. And then we have the student-centered delegator, right? The delegator is really hands-off. So the delegator is the one that would say, you know, for example, open your book to page 25, read page 25 to page 30, answer the questions. That's the delegator. The delegator will sit back or sit at their desk and do what they need to do. They may even check to see if the students are doing it correctly. But if you notice how he's standing apart from them, looking at them, he's more of a spectator than participating in the learning, in the teaching process. Now, the 5th style is a hybrid style. It's being proposed as bringing aspects of teacher-centered and aspects of student-centered together. So it's an integrated teaching style. They're able to cater to different students. So you have your teacher-centered, which is your direct instruction, you know, your authoritarian, your demonstrator, combined with your student center, which is your facilitator. You know, you'll have cooperative learning where the students are in a group and they're sharing ideas, et cetera, et cetera. So these are the 5 styles. And I want you in a short breakout session to tell me which, in your opinion, which teaching style has a positive impact on Pathfinder's overall learning. So for you as a Pathfinder teacher, which one of these styles would you use? So we have to find a way to do this differently. So basically, it's a variety of instructional strategies that help in diverse learning students' needs. And it enhances learning for all students.
Oh, hey, long time no see. How are you doing? Excellent. I'm so happy that you stopped by. I can't wait for our discussion on differentiated instruction. I'm so excited. I'm going to dance all the way inside. You might have some important questions about differentiated instruction. For example, what is differentiated instruction? Or you might be asking, how can I differentiate instruction to better meet the needs of my students? Let's begin by answering the question, what is differentiated instruction? According to Carol Ann Tomlinson, a teacher who differentiates instruction proactively plans and carries out varied approaches to content, process, and product in anticipation of and response to student differences in readiness, interest, and learning needs. Wow, that was a mouthful. Let's repeat that in a language we can all understand. Basically, in a differentiated classroom, the teacher creates different ways to learn the content and make sense of the content. The teacher also designs multiple ways students can create products to prove they have learned the content. Oftentimes, in a traditional classroom, the same content is taught through only one process, ending with the same product for everyone in the class. For example, in many classrooms today, students walk in through the door, sit in the chair, and listen to Mr. Boring lecture about how cell phones used to look like bricks. After the lecture, the students take a quiz and then leave. The next day, the same thing happens. Now, let's look into Mr. Awesome's classroom. First, his lesson probably wouldn't revolve around how cell phones used to look like bricks. He's probably concerned more with how technology has influenced our everyday lives. Mr. Awesome knows that his students learn differently. He also realizes that his students don't know exactly all the same things, so he assesses their knowledge. He now has an understanding of what his students know about how technology has influenced our everyday lives. He acknowledges that some students don't know what technology is, while other students could easily build their own computer. He will now use a variety of instructional strategies to match the readiness, talents, and interests of his students to the content, process, and product of the lesson. In the end, Mr. Awesome wins! He differentiated instruction to meet the varied needs and levels of his students. All of his students learned. Mr. Boring, well, Mr. Boring only won the Boring Teacher of the Year award. Differentiating instruction is not easy to do. It's difficult, but it's also imperative. It's important to remember that there's so much more to differentiated instruction than just a definition. It's a way of student achievement. So, it comes down to one question. Are you going to be Mr. Awesome or Mr. Boring?
Okay, so let's look at the Pathfinder curriculum. The Pathfinder curriculum is a major part of the core of the Pathfinder ministry, and it's focusing on creating a series of age-appropriate levels. My problem with the curriculum is that sometimes we place too much emphasis on it. You know, the books have to be finished, and Sunday after Sunday, we work on that curriculum, and what happens, it takes the fun out of pathfindering. So we need to find a balance as to how we are going to present this curriculum to the children. You have to know the curriculum you're teaching. You have to plan intentionally for each class. You can't show up on Sunday morning and say to the student, what was the last thing we did last week? And then try to go on from there. And then when you do stuff like that, that's when you have disciplinary issues because the students are bored and they don't want to listen to you anymore because they know that you are not prepared. So you have to be prepared. You have to plan intentionally. You have to know the students you teach, and you have to find the resources. You have to find the right methods. And it's important that you evaluate, because if you don't evaluate, you don't know what you need to do next, what you need to change. So every lesson should not look the same. Every lesson should look a little bit differently. So there's 6 key parts of a lesson. And I know by now you're telling me, I am not getting paid to do this. Why do I have to do all of this work? Well, if you want to be effective and champion a student and make a difference, you've got to do your part. So there's 6 key parts of the lesson. Lesson objective is very important. If you don't have an objective, what are you doing, right? Your objectives need to be SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. So for example, I teach the Friends class. One of my objectives could be, by the end of the lesson, the students will be able to identify 10 qualities of a good friend. Notice I didn't say able to identify qualities of a good friend. I can't measure that. At the end of the lesson, I can't measure that. But if I say 10 qualities, I can now measure that. The next thing is related requirements. When you plan objectives, you have to plan it with the entire curriculum in mind, right? The Pathfinder curriculum is a year-long curriculum. So you can't plan in isolation. You must plan with the curriculum in mind. You must have your lesson materials. If you need crayons, don't depend on the students or the children to bring the crayons, because half the times they're going to forget. So whatever it is that you need to have an extra set of everything, okay? You must have a procedure. So for example, what am I going to do first? What am I going to do second? How is the lesson going to proceed based on the time that I have to teach the lesson? Next is the assessment. You must always assess. If you do not assess, you do not know if you have been successful in accomplishing your objective. So if my students can only give me 5 qualities of a good friend, I have not achieved, and I have to go back and maybe redo it next week or review it next week. And the last thing is closure. It says lesson reflection, but I prefer to call it closure. So for every lesson, there has to be closure. So you can say to them, hey, what did you learn today? Usually I stand at the door and I said, okay, give me one thing that you learned. And they said, this is what I learned. We do a high five and they leave the room. So something like that. Make it fun. Don't make it like it's work or drudgery. Make it fun. Okay. Moving on to the class levels. I think most of you know this. So I'm just going to go over it very quickly. There's 6 class levels. There's the basic and the advanced. What I want to say about this is that a lot of the parents think that their child need to be invested as an advanced, a trail friend or wilderness or a frontier. Don't succumb to that. Don't water down the curriculum so that it sounds good at Investiture that, oh, all my kids were trail friends, but they have not yet accomplish the level at which they need to accomplish, okay? Even in the basic curriculum, if you having a child who is struggling, like a child who has problems with handwriting, you can actually write it in for them. You can help them along that way, right? So you have that ability, but don't succumb, because a lot of parents try to put that pressure. Always teach the basic curriculum first. If you try to do both friend and advanced and you haven't gotten anywhere, the child will not be invested as a friend because they have not completed the basic level, okay? Just wanted to look at how we relate to our class in terms, our students in terms of the classes. There are 4 stages of cognitive development that we need to kind of look at. But the last 2 is what I want to focus on. The concrete operational, starting from 7 to 11, and the formal operation from 11 to 12. And I'm going to go really quickly because I know I'm running out of time. So in concrete, it's exactly as the word says. The kids are very concrete, okay? In every situation, they're concrete with time, they're concrete with space, they're concrete with quantity. Okay, they're very, very concrete, basic level, right? That's why the Friend curriculum is much different to the Guide curriculum or the Voyager curriculum, because at that stage, at formal operation, they're starting to think more abstract. They're starting to think more about moral and social and ethical issues. You know, they can plan and they can be strategic. So when you plan your activities, keep in mind the difference between the concrete and the formal, where the kids are now at a very abstract level. The achievement tracks, I know that we all know these achievement tracks. You find them in the book. Also, for each of these classes, there are curriculum helps or teacher guides that can help you in terms of how you can plan and how you can help make your class interesting. If you haven't seen them yet, your director should be able, I'm pretty sure they are online as well, that you can just download them, because sometimes we feel very alone that we're trying to figure this all out, but actually somebody has already helped us figure it out, so don't reinvent the wheel, okay? Now, in terms of creativity, we have to be creative. So creativity are two things, thinking and producing. And it requires passion and it requires commitment to engage in the creative process. And you see the definition there. I'm not going to go through it because I want to get through a few other things. Creativity leads to fun, right? You don't want to be Mr. Boring. You want to be Mr. Awesome or Mrs. Awesome or Miss Awesome. You want the children to have fun, but still they are learning. Fun doesn't mean that we're wasting time. And sometimes I know that people think if they pass by and see our children having fun, they probably think, oh, the teacher's doing nothing at all. Children learn by having fun. And this is the 5 stages of the creative process. So you have preparation, you have incubation, elimination, evaluation, and implementation. So these are the things that you can engage in. Not that you're going to spend a whole lot of time doing this, but if you have a project or something you want the kids to do, this is a process that you can use. Don't need to do, okay, talked about that. Teaching the Pathfinder curriculum creatively. Recognize, if you don't remember anything about this, recognize that each Pathfinder learns differently. So you have a child in class and they're always ahead of everything. And sometimes we want to take the rest of the class and have them measure up to that one person. Each child in your class is different. They don't need to be like anyone else. Get to know their learning styles. And most importantly, like that video said earlier, build relationships with Pathfinders in your class. Even though they drive you crazy, build relationships. This will really help in teaching the Pathfinder curriculum. Now, teaching an AY honor. Teachers, you do not have to teach every honor that your children need to do. I know sometimes we feel taxed because we have to do that. But there are many wonderful professionals in the church that can help you. So I cannot sew, so I cannot teach the sewing honor because I will not do it justice. So seek out your parents, seek out church members to come in and help you with these honors. If you are teaching an honor, I want you to explore the possibility of using the EDGE method. It's a 4-step method for teaching a skill. So number 1, you explain it. So you explain what it is. Number 2, you demonstrate it. So this is a granny knot. We use this for, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then you demonstrate how to do it. Then you guide. This is how, step by step. And then you enable them to go out and do that honor on their own. So explain, demonstrate, guide, and enable. In AY honor, no child should be left behind. Keep the honor at the level of your children. So if your children are in Friends class, don't give them a level 3 honor. Start off with a level 1 honor. The Pathfinder curriculum is spiral, which means that it grows. Okay, it builds on top of each other. Friends being the foundation. Okay, so make sure materials are available and make sure that you have every child with you. If you have to teach the honor in 2 sessions, you teach the honor in 2 sessions so that each child feels that they are successful. So I am going to have you plan a lesson for the camp and skill honor. How is that lesson going to look like? Okay, if you, based on the class that you teach, that is the room that you will be in. So if you are friends, it's room 1 and 7. If you're companions, room 2 and 8. Explorer, room 3 and 9. Ranger, room 4 and 10. Voyager, room 5 and 11. And Guide, room 6 and 12. Take in mind some of the suggestions that have been given this morning, and I want you to get a little bit of practice. I wanted this to be practical for you, a little bit of practice in how you're going to effectively plan to teach the camping skills honor.
We know where each child is, and then allow a session for asking questions to know where the level of the children are. Involve the parents, let them know ahead of time that this is the camping skills that they're going to be doing. So have the children prepare ahead of time. It will make the class more fun instead of them just having to watch you do it. Also, while you're doing that, have a pop quiz, just a pop quiz to see whether at the end of the class, they understood exactly what you were doing for that particular camping skill. So we had a healthy discussion in our group as well.
That's actually excellent. Excellent work there. The involvement of the parents. What you did was differentiate. So if I have kids in my companion class who have not yet done the camping skills 1, how can I teach camping skills 2? And that's very, very important. Very good. Thank you for sharing. Leave you with some food for thought. If a child can't learn the way we teach, maybe we should teach the way they learn. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a ladder, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. In conclusion, thank you for being awesome participants this morning. May God bless your ministry. For our children, you definitely make a difference in their lives. God has called you to fulfill a very important part of fulfilling the plans that He has for each and every one of your Pathfinders. I leave this text with you. Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, be steadfast, be immovable, always excelling in the Lord's work, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. Be a champion for our children. May God truly, truly bless you.